Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again. You know, a few days ago, I did an episode on when do you put down the power rods and pick up the finesse techniques, and we got a really good response on that. So I'm going to do the opposite. I want to talk about when do you put down the finesse rods and pick up some of your power fishing techniques. You know, really, I think as a whole, you're almost always going to be better off fishing finesse tactics in terms of getting bites across the board, regardless of season, regardless of weather conditions. I think you're generally just in a better place. You increase your odds by throwing smaller finesse tactics, lighter line. You're going to be in a better place. Having said that, though, there are times when I think you're going to put yourself in a better position to cover more water, catch more fish, and catch bigger fish by throwing power fishing techniques. And there are certain things that I look for when I head out on the water or while I'm on the water that tell me it's time to put down my finesse techniques, pick up the power rods, and go to town, cover water, throw bigger baits, try to generate those bigger bites. There are really specific things that for me, I notice while I'm out on the water tournament fishing. And it's something that I want to share with you guys so that you're aware of it as well when you're out on the water next time. If this happens to you, you might go, you know what, I'm going to try a bigger bait. Let's see if I can generate maybe a few extra bites. So before I get into it, guys, I just want to remind you that if you want to support the channel, you can head over into my description, click the link to my shop, and I've got a bunch of shirts and t-shirts, sweatshirts, different various designs I've come up with that if you guys want to support the channel, you can purchase one of those. And walk around proudly with it to help promote the channel as well. And I guess with this topic, guys, the first thing I want to talk about is a couple of counter things that if you watch the previous episode regarding when to put down the power techniques, these kind of go hand in hand with that and counter it. You know, one of the biggest things for me to put down power fishing techniques is if I'm in post-front conditions, but it works the other way. If I'm heading out to the lake and I have pre-front conditions, meaning I know I've got weather conditions coming in, which generally are going to create a more active feeding period for fish. You know, there's times you drive to the lake and it's like you see deer everywhere, you see turkeys, you see just there is so much animal life. Usually that's a really good sign that the fish are going to be biting as well. And if I head out to the lake and I know I've got a front coming in later that day or the next day, generally fishing is going to be pretty good. So I'm going to start out with power fishing techniques to see if I can get bit right away, if I can cover water and get bit, because generally it's really nice to be able to go down the bank, moving quickly, throwing at high percentage spots. If you know that you're putting your bait by high percentage spots and you're just getting bit off each one, those fish are actively feeding because they're moving to those primary feeding locations to look for food. So it doesn't take much. So there's times you could throw a tin can in there and they're going to bite it. So if you make the right cast and put it into the right presentation because the fish are active, you're going to be in a good position. And that's when you want to be power fishing. So the first thing is when I head out to the lake, I want to know, am I in the right weather conditions to be power fishing? To go hand in hand with that, if I know that I'm going, say, river fishing and I've got heavy current or I'm on a lake that's got a lot of current flow, generally speaking, if you're fishing heavy current, that's a really, really good time to go with a power fishing technique, whether they're bigger flipping baits or your swim jigs or your chatterbaits or spinner baits, because you know that those fish are going to be tight to cover regardless of what their feeding activity level is. They're going to be tight to cover just to stay out of the current. They may be aggressive, they may not be, but they're going to be in really tight places. And a lot of times those fish are positioned in a manner where they're going to feed regardless of whether they're active or not. So what I'm saying is if you've got some good current flow and you've got a log coming into the water and you bring your bait past that log, if they're active, they're going to bite it. If they're not active, they're going to bite it out of reaction. So from that standpoint, I'd rather throw finesse baits, or not finesse baits, power fishing baits, because I can cover water quickly. A lot of times, if you're fishing current, you're fishing heavier structure, so I want some heavier gear. And I know I'm going to generate that bite from that fish regardless, because I know exactly where they're at. I know they're in that little current break, and that's where they're going to be. So I'm going to go power fishing if I know I'm in heavy current. A third situation is if I've got high water. If I've got water that is now getting up into the normal bank line, there's a couple of things with that. One, you probably got some off-colored water then. Even if you had a clear body of water that has got a good influx of water into it recently, you're going to have some off-colored water, which tends to lead you to throwing bigger, bulkier baits that create more water disturbance. So I'm going to lean on the power fishing techniques. The other thing has to do with when you've got high water, those fish can spread out everywhere. That then means, again, in order to locate them, I probably have to power fish. If there's water in the trees or water in the bushes, those fish can spread out a lot. And there's times where if you head out to the water and you're just fishing finesse tactics, you may not come across the group of fish because they have spread out so much and you had to fish so slowly to cover water that you just never found a good group of fish. Whereas if you started with your power fishing techniques and went down a flooded bank, you may realize a lot faster where those fish are holding, what types of cover they're holding on. And then at that point, maybe you want to, once you've really figured the pattern out, maybe you want to just fish those areas with some finesse gear. But if you're fishing that type of cover, you probably want your power fishing techniques. The other thing is once the water's gotten up to that point, you end up getting stuck a lot more with finesse tactics that are up in the trees or in the bushes when you've got high water. So those three scenarios are all really condition based. Before I even get to the lake, I kind of know what I'm getting at, right? So if the weather conditions are telling me that the fish are going to be active, if I know, I'm going to a river or I've just got a good influx of water where there's going to be more current, or if I know I've got rising water conditions where the water is going to be a little bit muddier, the water is going to be up into the old shoreline, those are all situations where I know I'm going to put down my finesse rods, pick up my power fishing tactics, and I should be in a better place. The last couple have to do with I'm out fishing. So if I'm fishing a finesse tactic and I'm getting consistently bit on the fall, so you throw your wacky rig out, you throw your Ned rig out, and they're biting it on the fall, what that's telling you is those fish are in an aggressive mood. They're swimming up to it before your bait even hits the bottom. A lot of times you don't realize how far those fish are swimming. They might be coming from 15 or 20 feet. They hear the splash, they swim over to it, they eat it before it ever hits the bottom. When that's happening, and that's happening consistently, you could probably put down your finesse tactics, pick up the power fishing stuff, cover a heck of a lot more water, and generate more bites because those fish are in such an aggressive mood that the power fishing tactics are just allowing you to cover more water and come into contact with more aggressive fish. So that's one thing you really want to pay attention to. Are the fish biting on the fall? The other thing that you can see while you're out on the water that may help you say, I'm going to put down the finesse tactics and try to fish more aggressively, is if the fish are busting. If you're seeing lots of schooling activity or lots of shad getting busted or, just bass breaking the surface, chasing bait, chasing whatever it is, if you're fishing a mayfly hatch and you're seeing fish rising to the surface, those are good times to put down your finesse tactics, pick up a faster moving bait, try to cover more water, try to come into contact with more fish. Because those are times when I do feel like you need to take advantage of those windows because you do not get those feeding periods all the time. But if you know when they're feeding, you need to cover more water. It's generally way better off to cover more water than to just simply sit in on a 100-yard stretch of bank and try to soak a worm or a Ned rig or whatever your finesse tactic, a drop shot. I just think you're way better off. So you want to let the fish tell you, are they active? And two of the best ways to do that are whether they're chasing bait or you're getting bit immediately on your cast. Because when that happens, you know that those fish are aggressive. So guys, I hope this was helpful. If it was, hit that like button. and I got to go help my little buddy. So I'm going to end the video here and stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching, guys.